People in our small suburban town always said we were the perfect family. The kind of family you saw on glossy Christmas cards, white picket fence, the golden retriever named Duke who never barked at neighbors, the two-car garage filled with more sports equipment than anyone in the cul-de-sac, and of course, my wife, smiling like the heroine of an American soap opera. But behind that family photo there was a storm brewing. You see, I learned the hard way that betrayal does not arrive with thunder. It sneaks in with whispers, with text messages at midnight, with lipstick that smells like another man's cologne, and with the slow erosion of trust. Some folks call it infidelity. I call it the conspiracy of silence. But let me rewind. Or maybe let me start at the ending, because that is the American way of telling a tragedy. Show the car crash first, then go back to explain why the brakes failed. The night I exposed my cheating wife in front of everyone was like a Super Bowl halftime show mixed with a congressional hearing. Neighbors gasped, relatives clutched their pearls, and even Duke, loyal as ever, whimpered under the table. And yet, in that chaos, I felt a strange freedom. The betrayal was public, the mask had fallen, and there was no going back. How did we get here? That is where the comedy begins. At first, the signs were so absurd I thought I was living inside a sitcom. She suddenly became passionate about Pilates, despite spending the last decade calling yoga mats adult sleeping bags. She started wearing perfume with names like Midnight Escape and Forbidden Desire, which, for a married woman of 15 years, felt like a marketing error. And then there was the laughter. Oh, the laughter. She would chuckle at her phone screen like she was reading Shakespeare rewritten by stand-up comedians. I asked her once, "What's so funny?" She said, "Memes. Memes." My wife, who still called Netflix the movie button, was suddenly a digital native rolling on the couch over inside jokes I never got to see. Now, in any rational family, one might sit down and talk. But rationality is boring, and America thrives on drama. So I did what any husband steeped in conspiracy podcasts and late-night talk radio would do. I investigated. I became part detective, part philosopher, part failed magician, pulling rabbits out of empty hats. At first, I checked the easy stuff, credit card receipts. Why did we have charges from steakhouses when she was supposedly vegan for a month? Why was there a hotel bill in her name when she claimed to be at a conference about wellness coaching? Since when did Holiday Inn become the epicenter of spiritual healing? The deeper I dug, the more ridiculous it became. There was a voicemail, half erased, where she whispered, "I cannot talk right now. My husband is here," followed by what sounded like the theme music from a baseball game. There was a mysterious scarf in the trunk of her car, monogrammed with initials none of us in the family shared. And once, during a backyard barbecue, I overheard her laughing on the phone, saying, "He suspects nothing. He thinks the dog chewed my charger." And betrayal in its purest American form is not just painful, it is slapstick. But here is the twist. The more evidence I found, the more I started questioning my own reality. What if I was the delusional one? What if my life had turned into a Truman Show spin-off, where everyone in town was acting and I was the only fool without a script? Was the cheating wife a symptom, or was she the puppet master of a grander conspiracy? I imagined secret societies meeting in suburban garages, swapping car keys and dinner recipes, all plotting to keep me in the dark. Maybe her affair was not just about love or lust. It was a coded message, a signal that the American dream itself was rigged. So I played along. I smiled at her jokes. I kissed her goodnight. I took family selfies with our golden retriever, while inside I was planning my exposé. I became both the audience and the actor in a tragic comedy about marriage and betrayal. Sometimes I wondered if the neighbors already knew. Maybe that was why the Johnsons across the street stopped inviting us to poker nights. Maybe that was why our mailman whistled suspiciously every time he dropped a package. Infidelity in the suburbs is never private. It seeps through the lawns like fertilizer until every family on the block smells the decay. And yet, in the strangest way, I started to enjoy the absurdity. The cheating wife had turned me into an unwilling protagonist of a thriller no Hollywood studio would dare to produce. There was humor in the pain. There was satire in the heartbreak. Every text message she hid became another punchline. Every unexplained outing a setup for a cosmic joke. I told myself, if Shakespeare were alive, he would write this play. If Stephen King were watching, he would add clowns. What she never realized, though, was that I had inherited something more dangerous than suspicion. I had inherited American stubbornness. The belief that truth, no matter how messy, deserved a stage. And so I plotted. Not just to confront her in the kitchen, not just to corner her in the driveway. No, I wanted spectacle. I wanted the grand reveal that reality TV shows only dream about. The family gathering was coming up, and I knew that would be my theater. Relatives, friends, neighbors, the entire cast of our so-called happy life would be there. And in that moment, the curtain would drop. But before that climactic act, I lived in a strange limbo. Every dinner was a chess game. Every bedtime story for the kids was a monologue rehearsed under my breath. The betrayal burned, yes, but it also sharpened me. It turned me into both cynic and comedian. And when I looked at her across the table, pretending to be the perfect wife, I thought, you have no idea that I know. You have no idea the comedy is about to turn into tragedy. Or maybe it is the other way around. That is how the stage was set. Not with screaming, not with slammed doors, but with the slow, ironic smile of a husband who had discovered his wife's infidelity and decided to weaponize humor as revenge. And if you think this story is simply about a cheating wife, think again. It is about family as theater, betrayal as entertainment, and America's obsession with turning pain into performance. The night of the big reveal was approaching, and I was ready. They say the devil hides in the details, but in suburban America, the devil is hiding in the Wi-Fi router logs. That is where I began my second act of discovery. Most husbands would hire a private investigator, maybe some trench-coated guy who sits in a van eating Cheetos and snapping photos through binoculars. But not me. I decided to do it the American way, by Googling how to catch a cheating wife at 2 a.m. while eating leftover pizza straight from the box. The internet, generous as always, offered a buffet of paranoia. Apps that track locations, spyware that reads messages, YouTube gurus who swear you can smell infidelity through changes in shampoo brands. It was both ridiculous and addictive, like conspiracy talk shows that make you believe Elvis is still alive in Montana. At first, I tried the logical route. I checked her calendar. According to her schedule, she was in yoga class 3 nights a week. But the funny thing about yoga mats is, they never lie. Her mat was still rolled up in the closet, gathering dust like a forgotten relic. Then I checked the car mileage. She claimed to drive only to the supermarket and back. Yet the odometer suggested she had circled half of New England. Either she was moonlighting as an Uber driver for ghosts, or she was driving somewhere that could not be confessed at dinner. Betrayal, it seemed, had a GPS signal. And then there was the phone. Oh, the glowing rectangle of secrets. She guarded it like it contained nuclear launch codes. If I so much as reached for it to check the time, she would snatch it back and laugh nervously, saying, "Work emails. Work emails." This from a woman whose idea of work was decorating mason jars and posting them on Pinterest. Infidelity was suddenly rebranded as productivity. I began to think that maybe corporate America should hire cheating wives as consultants. They had mastered the art of cover stories better than any PR firm. But here is where the story spirals into parody. One night, while she was asleep, I tried the classic trick, her thumb on the phone to unlock it. I had seen it in movies, and movies never lie. Except her phone had facial recognition. And somehow, Somehow, it unlocked with the face of our neighbor Todd. I swear on Duke the dog's stainless steel water bowl, the screen lit up when Todd's photo showed up on the television. Was Todd the mysterious lover, or was the algorithm itself conspiring with her? I could not tell anymore. Infidelity had merged with artificial intelligence, and I was caught in the middle like a confused extra in a sci-fi comedy. So I doubled down. I began to follow her. Yes, I became the suburban stalker in my own marriage. I would wait until she left in the evening, then tail her car at a safe distance, pretending my minivan was invisible. One Tuesday night, she drove to what looked like a hotel, but not the romantic kind with chandeliers. This was the type of roadside motel where carpets smell like fried chicken and wallpaper peels from the sins of 1,000 affairs. I parked across the street, pretending to read a newspaper like a detective from the 1950s. And then, as if scripted by the gods of dark comedy, I saw it. My wife walking into the lobby arm in arm with Todd. Yes, Todd, the man who once borrowed my lawnmower and never returned it. Betrayal stacked upon betrayal. I wanted to storm in. I wanted to demand answers. But instead, I took photos. Shaky, blurry shots that looked more like Bigfoot sightings than evidence of infidelity. Still, they were mine, my golden tickets to the circus of exposure I was planning. The irony, of course, was that I did not even need the photos. The motel clerk recognized me and said, "Your wife comes here a lot, huh?" It was like the entire world had joined in the parody, a cast of strangers feeding me clues as if my life were a sitcom with too much audience participation. Back home, I began to piece everything together like a detective with too much caffeine. Receipts, photos, overheard conversations. Each item became part of a bulletin board in the garage, red strings connecting faces, and places like I was unmasking a political conspiracy. Duke watched me pin notes to the wall, probably wondering why his human had turned into a character from a late-night crime show. But I was relentless. Betrayal had to be documented. Infidelity had to be cataloged. The cheating wife would be exposed, not with quiet whispers, but with theatrical thunder. And yet, in the absurdity of it all, I began to laugh. Not just chuckle, but full belly laughter at the ridiculousness of my own obsession. I was a man building an FBI case file in a garage filled with Christmas decorations and old baseball gloves. I was an American Don Quixote tilting at windmills of lust and betrayal. But perhaps that is the only way to survive infidelity in the suburbs, by laughing at it until the pain becomes part of the parody. Of course, I could not keep it to myself. I needed allies. So I told my best friend Carl over beers at the local sports bar. Carl, ever the philosopher, nodded and said, "You need to go big. Make it a show. Americans do not want whispers. They want fireworks." That was the moment the plan solidified. I would not just confront her in private. I would expose her in front of the entire family, friends, and maybe even the mailman if he happened to be delivering on Sunday. Betrayal deserved an audience. But in America, no performance is complete without rehearsals. So I practiced my lines in front of the bathroom mirror. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the star of tonight's betrayal. Too theatrical. This is what infidelity looks like when it wears yoga pants. Too cruel. Family, I must tell you the truth. The woman you think is devoted is a cheating wife. Just right. The mirror audience applauded. Duke barked, and I knew I was ready. As the day of revelation approached, I noticed something strange. My wife seemed happier than ever. She hummed in the kitchen. She baked pies. She even ironed my shirts, something she had not done since Bush was president. It was as if she sensed no danger, no storm brewing. Or maybe she did. And this was her final performance before the curtain fell. That was the cruelest part of betrayal. It was not just the act of infidelity. It was the theater of lies, the way she played the role of loving wife while scripting her own escape. And so I prepared. The family gathering would be the stage. The evidence would be my props. The betrayal would be the climax. I was no longer just a husband. I was a performer, a satirist, a whistleblower of suburban infidelity. And if America loves anything, it is the fall of idols. The circus was coming, and my cheating wife had no idea she was the main attraction. They say revenge is a dish best served cold, but in my neighborhood, it is a dish best served with barbecue sauce and potato salad. The family cookout was approaching, that sacred American ritual where people stand around a grill pretending to know the difference between medium rare and medium well. I knew it would be the perfect stage to reveal the truth about my cheating wife. If betrayal was going to poison my family, then at least let it be televised in the backyard of the American dream, complete with red plastic cups and folding chairs from Walmart. I spent days planning the spectacle. Some men plan weddings, some men plan surprise birthdays. I was planning the unmasking of infidelity, the theater of betrayal. My garage, once filled with lawnmowers and broken Christmas lights, had become a war room. The bulletin board with red strings connecting faces now looked like the storyboard for a low-budget Netflix documentary. I rehearsed speeches, not just in the mirror, but in front of Duke the dog, who wagged his tail politely every time I shouted, "Ladies and gentlemen, tonight you meet the cheating wife." My delivery improved, my timing sharpened, and I realized I was not just exposing her. I was auditioning for the role of a lifetime, the betrayed husband turned satirical showman. But paranoia is a dangerous companion. As I planned, I began to see conspiracies everywhere. When the cashier at Costco asked if I wanted a membership upgrade, I thought, does she know about the affair? When the church choir sang Amazing Grace, I swore one soprano lingered too long on the word lost, as if mocking me. Even Duke's growl at the UPS man sounded like a warning. They're all in on it. My cheating wife was not just betraying me. She was part of an underground network of suburban infidelity, a cabal that thrived under the cover of bake sales and PTA meetings. Or maybe I had simply watched too many late-night reruns of conspiracy documentaries. Either way, it made the story funnier in my head. The centerpiece of my plan was evidence. Americans love receipts, literally and metaphorically. So I collected everything. The blurry motel photos that looked like Bigfoot sightings, the suspicious credit card bills, even the voicemail where she whispered, "My husband suspects nothing." I printed them, laminated them, and arranged them into a slideshow presentation. Yes, a PowerPoint. If betrayal was going to be exposed, it needed bullet points, transitions, maybe even background music. I considered hiring a local DJ to play dramatic tunes, but Carl, my ever-practical friend, said, "Do not overdo it. Stick to the classics. Maybe Wagner." The props were just as important. I bought a cheap projector off Amazon, the kind advertised as great for family movie nights, and tested it by projecting the word infidelity across my garage wall. The letters glowed like a neon sign outside a Vegas casino. Duke barked at it, which I took as applause. I imagined my relatives' faces when the slideshow rolled. Betrayal turned into a suburban blockbuster, with me as both director and narrator. But the strangest part of the plan was the calm before the storm. My wife went about her days as if nothing was wrong. She baked brownies, she hummed country songs, she talked about redecorating the living room. It was the ultimate gaslight. I watched her stir sugar into coffee with the same hands that had clutched Todd's arm outside the motel, and I thought, does she think I am blind? Or does she think I am the audience in her one-woman play? The duality of it all was absurd. In one moment, she was the doting wife serving casserole. In another, she was the queen of betrayal, orchestrating infidelity behind the curtain. And yet she smiled, as if the family portrait was still intact. I will admit, Part of me wanted to confront her privately, to sit her down at the kitchen table, push the laminated photos across the counter, and say, "Explain this." But where is the drama in that? Where is the satire? America does not remember private confessions. It remembers the scandals aired in public, the betrayals shouted from podiums, the infidelities broadcast live. I was not just a husband anymore. I was a whistleblower of the suburban stage. My family deserved the truth. And maybe, just maybe, my neighbors deserved a little entertainment. Carl helped me refine the script. "You need a hook," he said, sipping his beer. "Start with something light, then drop the hammer, like stand-up comedy." So I wrote jokes into the speech. My wife said she was doing yoga. Turns out she was stretching in someone else's bedroom. Too harsh? She told me she was vegan, but her credit card says otherwise. Steak dinners for two. Better. Comedy was my shield, my way of making betrayal tolerable. If infidelity was the disease, then laughter was the cure, at least for the audience. I even rehearsed entrances. Would I stand by the grill and casually say, "Folks, I have something to show you"? Or would I climb onto the picnic table, holding the projector remote like a preacher with a Bible, announcing, "Behold the truth"? I leaned toward the latter. Theatricality was my weapon. If my cheating wife had chosen to humiliate me in secret, I would humiliate her in spectacle. As the cookout day approached, I noticed something eerie. Todd, the neighbor, began acting strange. He waved less often. He trimmed his hedges at night as if avoiding daylight. Once I caught him staring at me from across the fence, his face pale, his lawnmower running but unmoving. Was he nervous? Did he know the reveal was coming? Betrayal has a smell, and Todd reeked of it. I half expected him to flee the neighborhood before the barbecue like a fugitive in a sitcom spin-off. The night before the event, I could not sleep. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan, imagining the moment over and over. Would people gasp? Would they laugh? Would they side with me or with her? Infidelity divides families like civil wars. Some would whisper, "He should have handled it quietly." Others would clap me on the back and say, "Good for you." But one thing was certain, nobody would forget it. Betrayal, once public, stains every memory. The cheating wife would never again wear her mask of innocence. At dawn, I sat in the garage, sipping coffee, staring at the projector. Duke lay beside me, tail thumping softly. "This is it, buddy," I whispered. "This is where the family portrait cracks." He yawned, unimpressed. Dogs do not care about infidelity. They care about bacon, but maybe that was the point. In a world obsessed with betrayal, maybe only dogs understood the comedy of it all. And so, the stage was set. The grill would be hot, the beer would be cold, and the truth would be projected larger than life on a bedsheet pinned to the fence. The cheating wife thought her affair was a secret. Tomorrow it would become a suburban legend. Tomorrow, betrayal would meet its audience. The curtain was about to rise. The afternoon of the cookout arrived, and the air smelled of charcoal, hamburgers, and impending doom. Neighbors dragged lawn chairs across the grass. Kids ran around with squirt guns. Uncles debated politics they did not understand. And my cheating wife floated through the scene like a hostess from a commercial, smiling, serving, pretending. It was a Norman Rockwell painting dipped in gasoline. And I, standing by the grill with the projector remote in my pocket, was ready to strike the match. She wore a sundress, yellow with little white flowers, the kind of innocent pattern that mocked me with its purity. She laughed with Aunt Carol, hugged cousins, and poured lemonade into red plastic cups. To anyone else, she was the perfect wife, the glue of the family. But I knew the truth. Infidelity dressed itself in pastels and smiles. Betrayal hid behind potato salad. And tonight, betrayal would be unmasked. I began my opening act casually, flipping burgers, cracking jokes. Who wants theirs well done? Who wants them medium? The crowd chuckled, unaware they were the warm-up audience for the scandal of the year. My best friend Carl gave me a nod from the folding chair, a silent cue that said, "Showtime." I tapped the projector remote in my pocket like it was the nuclear launch button. The American dream was about to have its very own halftime show. I called for attention. "Ladies and gentlemen, family and friends," I began, raising my beer. "We gather today not just to celebrate togetherness, but to celebrate truth." Heads turned, conversations hushed. The kids froze mid-squirt. Even Duke stopped chewing on a Frisbee. I stepped onto the picnic table, towering over the barbecue kingdom, the sun behind me like a spotlight. My wife looked up, puzzled, holding a plate of corn on the cob. I smiled at her the way executioners smile at condemned men. "Every family," I said, "has secrets, but our family has something bigger. Betrayal. Yes, betrayal with a capital B." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Aunt Carol clutched her pearls like she was auditioning for a soap opera. Uncle Ron muttered, "What the hell is he talking about?" My wife laughed nervously, saying, "Honey, sit down. You're embarrassing yourself." But it was too late. The curtain was rising. I pulled the white bedsheet across the fence, clipped at the corners, and turned on the projector. The word infidelity blazed across the backyard like a drive-in movie. Gasps, shouts, Duke barked. The slideshow began. First slide, a blurry photo of my wife entering the motel with Todd, the neighbor who now sat 3 chairs away, choking on his hot dog. "As you can see," I narrated, "our very own family portrait is cracked. This is not yoga class, ladies and gentlemen, unless yoga now requires motel key cards." Laughter and gasps collided. Someone dropped a plate of potato salad. Second slide, credit card statements, charges for fancy steakhouses. "Notice the dinners for 2, I explained. "She told us she was vegan. The only kale she was eating came as garnish on a ribeye steak shared with her partner." A cousin whispered, "No way." A neighbor muttered, "I knew something was off." Todd coughed louder, face red as ketchup. Third slide, the voicemail. I hit play on the speaker. My wife's voice filled the backyard. "I cannot talk right now. My husband is here." Gasps turned into shrieks. Betrayal was no longer whispered. It was surround sound. Aunt Carol fainted into a lawn chair. Someone yelled, "World Star!" as if waiting for a fight to break out. My wife stood frozen, corn on the cob still in hand, eyes darting like a cornered animal. "This is insane," she shouted. "He's making this up." But Americans love evidence more than denials. I waved the laminated photos like court exhibits. "The jury is here," I declared. "The case is closed. Ladies and gentlemen, you've been dining with a cheating wife." The crowd erupted into chaos. Some relatives comforted her, others avoided eye contact, and still others whispered gleefully as though TMZ had come to their backyard. Carl slapped me on the back, whispering, "Nailed it." Todd, sweating like a marathon runner, muttered something about misunderstandings before storming off. The children, confused, asked why everyone was yelling, and someone explained too bluntly, "Because your mom broke the rules of family." Betrayal had now entered their vocabulary, a gift wrapped in suburban spectacle. My wife tried to regain control. "Do you really want to humiliate me like this, in front of everyone? This is family." Her voice cracked on the word family, and I almost felt pity. Almost, but pity is not justice. Justice is projection, in both senses of the word. Justice is airing betrayal on a $20 Amazon projector pinned to a fence. Justice is America's obsession with turning private pain into public theater. I delivered the closing lines I had rehearsed in the garage. Marriage is built on trust. Family is built on loyalty. Infidelity destroys both. This is not just about me. It is about all of us. If we let betrayal live in silence, then the American dream rots in the shadows. But today, the shadows are gone. Today, we see the truth. The backyard fell silent, except for Duke gnawing loudly on a hot dog bun. Then applause broke out, hesitant at first, then stronger. Not everyone clapped, but enough did. Carl whistled. Cousin Jenny shouted, "Preach!" It was surreal, absurd, tragic, and comedic all at once. A parody of justice, but justice nonetheless. My wife fled into the house, slamming the screen door. Todd had already disappeared, his lawnmower probably still running unattended across the fence. The party broke apart slowly, relatives retreating to cars, neighbors gossiping as they left. The cookout, once about hamburgers and sunshine, had become a courtroom drama staged on a picnic table. When the backyard finally emptied, I sat alone on the picnic table, projector cooling at my feet, Duke lying beside me. The bedsheet with the word infidelity flapped in the breeze like a war banner. I felt strangely calm. Betrayal had been dragged into the light. The cheating wife was no longer a ghost in my house. She was a headline in my backyard. And yet, I knew the story was not really over. Divorce lawyers would be called. Papers would be signed. Neighbors would gossip for months. The kids would one day piece together what that barbecue really meant. But for me, the performance was complete. I had taken my pain and turned it into theater. I had transformed infidelity into satire. In America, that is as close to redemption as a man can get. So I raised my beer to the empty yard, to the ashes of hot dogs and hamburgers, to the shattered image of a family that had once been perfect. To betrayal, I said softly, may it never hide again. And Duke, loyal as always, barked in agreement.